Hello everyone. My name is Subhankar Ghosh. I am the member of DLC Global ICHA Committee Kolkata chapter. Today I am going to speak about what does it mean to be a value-based organization. Now, value-based organization is a lovely term, but before we go into that, let's talk about organization at large. Organization, there are so many types. Most of the thing we find that it is being driven by the owners, it is being family driven. Some we find very systematically and process driven. Some we find large MNCs. So there are organizations of various types. Uh, what we find, most of them are semi structured and very controlled. That actually doesn't give a very clear picture for the longer version. So that's how a lot of companies in initial stages came with something known as a value based organization. See, value based is nothing but, if we remember, when we grew up in our childhood, we are being taught in our school, we are being brought up by our parents about a lot of values, what we should do, how we should react, how to behave in front of others, how to grow up in life, how to take decisions. And in between, we, along with all our studies, we have developed a lot of values. Now, the same applies to organizations, because organization is an entity which also runs for a longer version. So when I find that my personal values, what I have grown up with, and where I join in my career, there is a lot of match, that organization slowly and steadily becomes very solid. And I find myself a lovely place in that organization. So how does it take to make a value based organization? So normally what happens, there are two types of values, as we say, terminal values and institutional values. Terminal values are basically the goals, in a person's life, what he achieves in his and her tenure. And institutional values are the behavior by means of which he achieves it. So how does it come into the organization? Now, when an organization forms and when an organization grows from a small one to a large one, so there are certain rules and regulations, there are certain structures which it needs to follow, and they build it up based on values. Why values? Because they have to define the culture. I'll come back to it, how from values a culture is formed. Now, the values that we are grown up with, we are used to it. So when an organization comes up with a lot of values, that what these employees should do, how the business should roll, what are the things we should do, what are the things we should not do, that automatically gives a very big brand to the organization. So when I, as an individual, as an employee, joins and works in an organization, I feel proud that this is where I work, which takes care of me, which takes care of my family and the society at large. There are several values. You talk of ethics and integrity, you talk of leadership skills, you talk of time management, you talk of respect. So many values an organization can define depending on the mode of business they are. It's not that any organization can take any value. It's not something like that. So it all depends on what sort of business they are having, what sort of strategic plan they are having, where they want to be in next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, how they want to see the next generation coming up. Based on that, they create values, and based on that, they align employees or they take employees who resemble very closely to their values. And when this match happens, then only there is a lovely marriage that happens between the employer and the employee. So why we have values? What does it give to us? Few things. When we grow up with values, we knowingly, unknowingly develop one very important aspect of life. What is that? Decision making. Values guides our decision. What to do, what not to do. In every sphere of life, we sometimes get confused. We are into a path where there are two ways: what to do, what not to do. These values actually act as the guidelines, that they teach us this is what you should take, because I don't know the future, what is going to help. My decision actually tells me where I'll be, and who helps me to take those decisions? My values. Point number two, it helps me to give me a lot of self confidence. Because I'm being brought up with a lot of values, I know the essence of life. I can stand in front of others, I can talk to others, I can take calls, I can run the business based on those values. So these values, the employee which imbibes in his childhood or during his school days or college days, and then when he gets into the organization, he gets accustomed to the another set of values, which actually merges, that actually gives a lot of scope of development for the organization to go to the next level. This is point number one. The thing is that why we have these values? Because the main motto is to have a culture, and this culture, what we talk of, what we dream about, which is going to be in our future. So we actually look into our future, that this is how we are going to work in an organization of a certain culture. We talk about that, right? And what is that culture? The culture is where we aspire and what we think that this is where we need to be. So how do we create that culture? So values, what we take, suppose an organization has a set of 5 values or 6 values, which he expects all its employees to practice. So these values are being broken up into attributes, a lot of small single attributes, and that needs to be practiced day in and day out during every transaction, during their mode of work. These traits actually then form the culture. So what I do, see, culture is nothing but the behavior I generate. So how am I going to behave when somebody comes? How I'm going to respect? It's not about respecting the seniors, respecting each and every member, respect for labor, what we talk about, respect for work, respect for talent. Now that is one sort of value which actually it comes up. So this value actually comes to form an organization which has a culture, maybe a performance-driven culture, maybe a goal-driven culture, and these values actually help us to come to that, come and get into a conclusion that how things need to be, and this then percolates down generation after generation, and that is how we have got large organizations which actually operates all across the world, different geographies, but keeping the values intact. There are so many MNCs, so many Indian organizations which runs in different parts of the country as well as different parts of the globe. But wherever you visit, whenever you visit, you can always feel a same set of culture, same set of values. And this is what the values actually have helped them. But do all the employees know values? That's a big question. Being in HR, that has been a major challenge to a lot of us. Do all the employees know about what our values are? Yes, during the interviews, they definitely go through the internet, the company's website, and search the values, study the values, ask questions also. But in due course of time, do they remember? Unfortunately, the answer is no. Most of the times, we find that the values are being placed either in the reception or in the conference room. Employees give a look and then they forget. So what do we do? It's not that they don't behave as per the values. They do, but not to the extent they should be doing. That has been the finding. Some people do, some may not. So to align them with the company set of values, just to form the value-based organization, as we mentioned, which stays in the longer run, what we do, there are several exercises that we do. I mean, we take a lot of workshops on values, where each and every value, we spend hours onto it, giving examples. As we all say, facts forgotten, stories remembered. So if you remember, back in India, we heard stories of Panchatantra. Those are nothing but the morals, the values. They talked about a lot of things, what one person should do. The story between a tiger and a crow, or the story between a crocodile and a monkey. If you remember, there are so many moral stories. Those are nothing but that generate values. So what we do on those workshops, we give a lot of examples, some really practical examples, which the leaders have shown during their course of interaction with their clients or with other departments, that this is how we should exhibit ourselves. There may be a lot of situations where things don't go in our way, where I hold my nerve, where I hold my voice and look into the larger picture of the company, that his brand name or his goodwill doesn't get disturbed. That is very important. So those examples we pick up from the organization leaders and from outside, and then we run a lot of workshops training the employees of what the meaning of those values are, how this should be practiced, and how it should run into their system. Number two, we all have performance management system in the organization, right? And we talk about the KRAs and the KPIs and the core competencies and what I should do, what are my developmental plans. Along with that, what if we put a section on values and put a small weightage, maybe 5, maybe 10, as per as you think. The importance is not of the weightage. The importance is I'm forcing everybody to go through the company values and maybe write an example, personal life, professional life, anywhere where he has actually exhibited any of such value. Now that actually helps me to go through the organizational values. That actually helps me to cite an example. And once I think something and write, it gets imbibed. So I don't have to mug and remember them. Number two. Number three, we see a lot of write-ups, a lot of statements, quotations, wonderful statements by very famous people, and then we say this has been written by he signs it off, say Albert Einstein or Rabindranath Tagore or Mahatma Gandhi, and a quotation and a statement. What can we do something like this in values, that we break the values into attributes and we form some employee engagement activities and we ask them that you start doing something on those values, on those attributes. Maybe a quotation, maybe a picture, maybe a drawing, maybe whatever, which depicts one of the values of the organization. And then let's have a competition all across the organization. You can do it team wise, you can do it singly, doesn't matter. What it matters that I know the values, I practice the values. That's important. And then we declare maybe a set of prize owners. And each and every prize owner who will be selected, his name will be written like an Albert Einstein or a Rabindranath Tagore or a Mahatma Gandhi. And that will be framed and put into the walls of the organization. When you climb up the stairs, you see, my next department colleagues write up, maybe somewhere else. How does it feel? Doesn't somebody feel proud? Doesn't somebody feel elated? It is. It does. It really does. So we can have similar competitions where we force our people, where we force our employees to go through such exercises and have these values. Now, what happens if we do this for a longer version of time? It's not a one-off exercise that this year I do and then next year I forget. No, we practice this to perfection and we go it for a longer version of time. What happens? We automatically establish values. So we don't have to look into the conference room or into the website that what the values that my organization has. But actually, when we practice, we spread this among all our colleagues. And that we all develop a set of values, which not only here, but we can carry back to our society, to our family, to our children, and show them, teach them that this is how we grow up. What the organization how the organization benefits out of it? Brilliantly. Number one, he has got a lot of brand ambassadors who are actually the best brand ambassadors for the organization. We talk of branding, we talk of advertisement, we talk of this, that, marketing policies. Nothing is better than own employee being a brand ambassador, because what he says about the company is what comes from the horse's mouth, right? So when we create a set of loyal employees, the organization benefits. They stay with the organization, they stick to the organization, they feel motivated, they contribute more than 100%. And in the longer version, it's not only the organization stays, the organization flourishes. And that is each and every time, that is the organization's goal. The organization's goal is not just to establish its value system, but to stay in the longer run, to be profitable, right? I mean, the more the organization makes profit, the larger it grows. The larger it grows, the more I grow. And that is very simple. Okay, so this is in a nutshell what values does to us and does to the organization. The organization flourishes, we flourish, and we go to a wonderful life. This is all about the full thing. Thank you so much, DLC, and thank you everyone. This has been a wonderful topic, something very close to my heart, and I really feel honored to speak whatever little I know about this topic. Thank you once again.